Greetings and welcome back to the Casual Wargamer. Today, talking about terrain and its placement and so forth. It's a little bit of a rant in a way, but mainly that's directed due to competitive influences on Warhammer. So, a couple of months ago, I played a local GT, my first proper GT, August into September weekend. Now, I don't know, I can't remember whether the terrain layout was ITC or UKTC, but basically it was all corner pieces like this, but no doors or windows. Even this top bit was solid. And this bit, the interior, always faced away from the middle of the table. Arg. There's a couple of things from this. One, a personal thing, which was it completely it removed my immersion in the game. And as a casual narrative player, for me, it's all about the enjoyment comes from the immersion, as it were. So having things with absolutely no doors and windows. I mean, these ruins didn't even have things like this. It was just smooth, you might as well have just put cardboard boxes down. Now, I know, if I can get that to stand still, the organiser had borrowed the terrain for the event. Again, I can't remember whether it was ITC or ETC format that does this, but I felt you could have just put a box down and gone, there you go, that's a building, that's a ruin. And then you have things like, one of the units I'd taken was suppressors, and I always like suppressors in a high vantage position to get plunging fire. Well, when this is all cut up so you can't see out, it made one particular unit choice of mine absolutely pointless. I don't like them sitting on the ground floor, they're not good enough. Hadn't I known that, it would have made a difference to the list I took. I'd have taken something else. But yeah, I mean, the games were fun themselves, but the table terrain was fairly awful for me. Then there's the layout. Now, this is a thing in competitive games and tournaments. You see it all the time. You have these weird, I say weird, terrain layouts. Some tournaments have their own, and if you look at the Leviathan and Pyrnexus like tournament pack type things on their community website, they have a set of, I think it's like 4 or 6 suggested table layouts. And I think bar one exception, they're all awful. They're terrible. Everything now is set up to prevent firing lines. And it's been this way for a long time, since 4th edition, because of grumbles from players of assault-based armies. You used to hear it all the time from the likes of Tyranid players, World Eaters players, anybody that wanted to get up there in your grill and go smack, complained. There was these huge complaints that shooting armies were dominant and shooting is king, and quite frankly, that's a load of Hufflepuff. Assault armies are dominant. Shooting armies required lines of fire in order to whittle numbers down, because at least in earlier editions, which I will grant, you could have 10 tactical marines and they could be letting off 20 shots, 20 dice. Assuming they didn't kill any of those World Eater berserkers, they could slam into your lines and have 40 dice, often with better AP. And just, I'm not going to go into the AP system again. I tend to do that a lot. But suffice to say, it was much more overpowered previously. And assault armies didn't like it because they would get shot off. They would get a number of their models killed before they got to you. But that's how it was meant to be. Shooty armies like Space Marines, Tau, Astra Militarum, aka Imperial Guard back then, were built around gun lines. You would line up in your deployment zone and you would boom, and then you would go through, grab objectives or whatever you needed to do, grab table quarters. Whereas now, and pretty much since 5th edition, it's all changed. Your armies can't hold gun lines. Everybody has to move forward, and everybody basically has to dogpile the middle of the table. That's where a lot of it happens. And there are armies that just don't cope with that. You're playing into the hands of assault armies. So you see a lot of these terrain layouts, which are just awful because they favour those assaulty sort of units. Prevents them being shot, they then get up to you and they wreck face. In the old days, the way terrain was laid out generally was you'd have a large piece of, pretty much most things were ruins. You would have a large piece in the middle of the table to prevent, line of fire across. You'd have a large piece in the middle of each table quarter, so a 5 sort of on the dice sort of thing, and then you would put down some trees. You'd put down some barricades, crates, the scattered terrain type stuff, and that's what you would have, and it worked. It was balanced. Shooty armies could take out enough models of enemy charging units that potentially they wouldn't be wiped out outright, and so on. But also it meant that whatever your mission objective, whether it was kill points, capture, table quarters, or whatever, or objectives, you had enough cover. That you weren't totally wiped out, but it all all these changes, as I keep saying, all come down because of grumbles from competitive assault-based army players. Another thing that has changed that I don't like, going back to these, who was the numpty? And I'm going to say numpty because I'm being polite. This is a family channel. Who went, windows and doors on the ground floor don't exist. This is solid. You can't shoot in or out. We often talk in geekdom about who, if we develop time travel, who would we go and slap? I would find the person who thought that was an idea and slap them with this ruin. I don't know. It just bothers me to a huge extent. Because someone will be sat there with this ruin, an objective under here partially, say their model's holding that objective, and I go to shoot them because there's windows. And they go, oh, you can't shoot me, the ground floor's blocked off. Why are there windows on the ground floor? I can understand it if this particular kit, say, came and only the upper floors had windows. I wouldn't be happy with it because I think for realism, for that verisimilitude, you need to have doors and windows on the ground floor. You need to be able to shoot in. You're getting cover, for goodness sake, when someone shoots you in here. As I said, it's a little bit of a rant. Terrain should be set down. This is my views here. These days, with 10th edition, what we generally tend to do is set up, because from the deployment cards that pretty much the same 2 corners, bottom left, top right, however, are going to be the deployment zones. So always have a large piece in that deployment zone. Again, something like this, or I'd perhaps even go, if you've got it, something with an extra floor. Give snipers, give your eliminators, your rangers, your snipery type units somewhere to actually benefit from that ability. get the plunging fire, give them something. Another ruin in the other corners. Sometimes I like get two of these, put them together. So you've got that as one piece. Again, it helps cover up objectives. It gives you some cover. Then in the middle, because we all know there's an objective going to be in the middle of the table unless you pull that one special rule card. And what I tend to do is have two buildings, so not ruins, buildings, that sit either side of that objective. And sometimes you put them side on like this, sometimes you do it that way, sometimes slanted. But the middle objective sits in that little alleyway between them. And you need enough room that vehicles or knights can get in. Pardon me. But again, it's blocking line of sight straight to it. If you end up with a deployment, say you set this up facing upright, but you're playing that way, you can easily just shift it around to a diagonal or horizontal, whichever, just for fairness. Middle of each end, middle of each side, some light cover. Trees, a small wood or forest, which I'll come to momentarily. Something like that. A barricade of crates, stick 3 of them in a little pyramid. Something so that whichever way you are coming from, you have got somewhere to hide units behind or in. You still have this sort of like ring, this square around that central point. You can put a couple of barricades in or something like that to provide a little bit of extra breakage. But that, to me now, is how you set a table up for 10th edition. Obviously, you can play around with that concept, but that's the way to do it. You want room to be able to move out with your vehicles or whatever, your monsters. You want room to be able to hide units so that they can shoot. You want somewhere where you've got some elevation over part of that table that they can see. All too often, when I do see that somebody's got like a sniper's nest type ruin, it's placed in such a way that they can't, because of the stupid terrain rules, you can't fire over. There's no true line of sight. So it's pointless. You need to make sure that they have that. The other, it's not a major thing, but as I mentioned in that tournament, everything was sort of like that, with this bit facing into the middle of the table. Nothing stops you putting the ruined bit outwards, because you're still getting cover being on these positions. Thematically, that's how I like a table to be set up. I like a ruined city. In my mind, and the idea I have if I ever won the lottery and I shed loads of money, is to make a fixed table. If you've ever seen sort of like photos from World War II, like Stalingrad or somewhere like that, or Berlin after the bombing, where you've got these skeletal ruins, all this rubble everywhere, that is sort of like how I envision a city fight table. That's the sort of thing I would like to set up as a permanent board using this terrain format that I've spoken about. Yes, there was the other thing I was going to say, and this is a comment I saw on a video by, I think it was Chapter Master Valrak. I can't remember the name of the person. His video was about why he didn't like 40k 10th edition, and that's something I might do a video about at some point, because I'm really kind of a bit fed up of people saying this. But somebody in the comments said, everything is a city fight now. Everywhere is a city fight board. You never see forests. You never see woods. Everything's a city fight. It's boring. Okay. It's not boring. City fights are cool. But I agree. And in fact, in the Crusade game I had against my friend Danny last night, I made sure to dig out a couple of these little copse of tree things and plonk them down a couple of places in our ruined city for light cover. And it was quite nice to actually use them again. So there's no reason why you can't do that. So yeah, woods. So the point of this little rant really is to say, when you're setting up your tables, I mean, tournaments are a completely different matter. They're going to be, slightly annoying for me anyway, in their deployments and the way they do these ruins. But in your friendly games, in your casual games at home, try the suggestion that I've made. That's how to set a table up. What I might do a little bit later is reset the table up, or set up one and take an aerial photo so you can see what I mean and put it on the community section. Because that's probably going to be better than me trying to explain it. But try that sort of style, that format of table, and I think you'll have a better game, because there'll be room for the shooty armies to do what they want to do. There's the option, the abilities for assault armies to get up there and do what they want to do. There's room for things, vehicles, monsters, knights, whatever, to move around and do what they want to do. It's a much more fun layout than what I see for tournaments and competitive play. I really don't like what I see on a lot of tournaments for their tables. It just, I enjoy the events, what have you, but to me, it sort of saps a lot of the immersion, a lot of the enjoyment from it. Anyway, thank you for watching. Let me know your comments down below, whether you're a yay or a nay with what I've just said. It's always interesting to hear opposing opinions. Give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, yay. Trying to grow the channel, and that will help. And I'll talk to you in the comments down below. And in the meantime, take care and good gaming.